morning, we are joined by Angelique Power, a board member of Michigan Future, Inc., and by Lou Glazer, the president of Michigan Future, Inc. They are going to discuss the working parents tax cut and some new polling that was recently conducted by Impact Research about that tax policy. As we begin, I'd like to turn it over to Angelique Power.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Happy Solar Eclipse Day. I'm Angelique Power, and I am, as Adam said, a board member of Michigan Future. I also lead a youth-focused foundation in Detroit, although I am here in my capacity as a board member today. So first, let me tell you why I joined this board. It's rare in Michigan, let alone in the country right now, to find a space dedicated to and successful at bringing people together from different political backgrounds, from cities and small towns, to talk, to exchange ideas, and to come up with policy recommendations that align with people's values. This is the secret sauce of Michigan Future. This bipartisan policy think tank conducts research that studies trends over time, conducts polling, and then communes with people across the state and across the aisle to determine what are sound, sensical, evidence-driven policy solutions that will improve Michiganders' quality of life across the board. You may already know that Michigan Future was a leader in the effort to expand Michigan's Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC, succeeding in 2023 with the expansion of EITC from 6% to 30%. This was achieved by leading and organizing a statewide coalition of more than 230 organizations to advocate for this significant, life-changing tax policy that helps Michigan's working families deal with the ever-rising costs of basic necessities. Truly critical to the goal of growing Michigan's population in smart and proven ways, Michigan Future has been a strong voice in the effort to attract and to retain young talent as well, providing data analysis and policy proposals that would keep our youngest and brightest here. Especially relevant for today, Michigan Future is a powerful voice in the efforts to ensure rising incomes for all. Michigan's success is, after all, dependent on ensuring Michigan's residents can thrive. So as Michigan's economy grows, so too do the wages of Michigan residents. It's really that simple. The Working Parents Tax Credit is an example of a powerful policy that ensures the success of our economy by including residents in thoughtful ways. Lou's going to share some data details, but I wanted to preview some headlines here on the front end to highlight why this polling is truly groundbreaking. One, we're living in a post-pandemic time where there's near universal acknowledgement that young people need a lot more support. Holistic wraparounds and access to nourishing spaces is key. There's need around the clock in schools and out of school to provide this. And the cost of this is really hard for families that are working and trying to achieve access to this holistic support for our youngest Michiganders. It's elusive for many. The other reason that this polling is really important is because we're living in a time where people across the aisle don't want government to create programs necessarily, but people want independence and freedom to make their own choices. People need access to capital, not necessarily more government programs for support. So we need to trust our working parents across the state, in cities, in small towns, and everywhere in between. And the third reason why this is really important polling is because it's about scale. While government programs are critical today, we are only helping 30,000 children through the current child subsidy. This proposal is the only way to get to scale. Suddenly, being able to help 250,000 children in 1 year alone, the ripple effect for this is incredible. And the last point I'm going to make is about the price tag. Lou will talk about this, but the cost of the program isn't a hidden gotcha. People across partisan divides were asked point blank about the cost to achieve this. And the majority of Republicans, the majority of Democrats, and the majority of independents agreed it's worth it. These are not just hardworking families that would directly benefit, that said, yes, this is important. This was agreed upon by those that don't have kids, those that are over 50 and more. At Michigan Future, we understand that this isn't just a good idea. We see this as a generation-changing opportunity for Michigan. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Lou.
Thanks, Angelique. So what I'm going to do is two things. First is just describe for you our working parents tax cut proposal, and then secondly, highlight the poll findings, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the proposal itself is fairly straightforward. It is a $5,000 per child fully refundable tax credit for children between the ages of 0 and 3, $2,500 fully refundable tax credit for children between the age of 3 and 6. As Angelique mentioned, that covers an estimated 250,000 Michigan kids. The eligibility standards to get the credit are twofold. One, you have to be a recipient of the federal earned income tax credit, which in 2024 goes up to around 64,000 for households with 3 children. It's children based, so the maximum depends on the number of kids in the household. And second, you have to have $10,000 in work earnings. So that's the basic proposal. It's a per child tax credit for EITC recipients with $10,000 in household work earnings. So it is designed to be both an incentive to work and a reward for workers. I guess the only other thing to mention is like the EITC, it's limited to 3 children per household. So what we did just recently is that we had Impact Research do a poll to gauge public support for the proposal, whereas Angelique mentioned we were explicit in the poll that the cost was $1 billion. And what came back was that 69% of Michigan likely voters, with the price tag included, were supportive of the proposal. When during the poll, they got more information about the impact of the proposal, support grew to 76%. And opposition fell by 5 points to 18%. So the margin is 76 to 18. So number one is the proposal has widespread support. Second is that the support is very broad. It is supported across the political spectrum by Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Second, it is widespread by media market. It has large majorities in every media market in the state. Third, which to some degree is most interesting to us, it is almost equally supportive by non-parents as it is by parents. And finally, it's supportive of those under $50,000 in income, who are the group that is most likely to be eligible, but also by those that earn more than $50,000. So recipients and non-recipients, very supportive of the proposal. And finally, what in many ways may be the most important finding, by a 2-to-1 margin, when we ask folks, do they prefer supporting working parents through a tax cut or through programs like spending on housing and childcare by 2 to 1, once again, across the board, amongst all these various subgroups, they chose doing it through a tax cut. So those are the basic headlines out of the poll. Broad support for the proposal. The support is almost as strong amongst people who are going to be non-recipients as recipients, and a strong preference to provide support, as we've been urging, through providing cash through a tax cut rather than through programs. So with that, let's open it up for questions.
Yes, if folks have questions, please raise your hand or place them in the chat, and we will address them in the order that they are received.
Right, and I think Adam is right. Through the chat, they have access to the memo from the pollster that has more details.
Correct. I did place in the chat a memo, a link to the memo where people can view the poll results from Impact Research. And we do have some questions coming in. So I think I saw Andrew. Andrew, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you taking my question, Lou. I am wondering how, with support, is there political support behind this, considering the everything was just lowered with the ITC through Whitmer was able to get some of that.
So I guess a couple of things. First is, this is not an expansion to the earned income tax credit. We're using the ITC as the delivery mechanism because it's the least expensive and easiest administrative way. This is a per child tax credit that is designed explicitly to help families with childcare and deal with the benefit cliff. In terms of political support, if everything goes as planned, there's going to be bills introduced in the House and Senate, different bills, but similar bills on the working parents tax credit in the House and Senate this week. And we'll begin the process of trying to organize sort of support for it. And basically we're going to, hopefully with a broad coalition, we're going to be making the case to policymakers that if you're serious about helping working parents, if you're serious about doing it at scale, if you're serious about helping parents specifically with the cost of raising children, this is the best way to do it.
So my follow-up is, what is the overall cost of this program?
As we said, it's $1 billion.
Billion? Okay.
And as you'll see, we included the $1 billion in the polling. So this broad support, the pollsters told us that we're pretty courageous in including the cost because it normally drives down support. In this case, it did not. People understood it cost $1 billion, and still, after learning about it, 76% of Michiganders say they support the proposal.
Thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
Kyle, I believe you're next.
Thanks so much, Adam. Yeah, I just had a quick clarifying question for Lou regarding the eligibility. You said $10,000 in work earnings. Is this like household income? Is this, yearly? What's the frame on that? I was wondering if we could get a little more details there.
So there's 2 qualifications. You have to have received the federal earned income tax credit. In addition to that, you have to have $10,000 in work earnings. So that would be income that's reported either on a W-2 or a 1099.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions folks have? Feel free to either raise your hand or place them in the chat. Colin.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for taking my question. I guess I'm curious, since this is a billion-dollar proposal, you had already talked about the political support behind this,
Right.
but I'm curious kind of what is your plan for dealing with opposition to this, given that the state has already spent a lot of money, the surplus has been dwindling, and there may not be the same support for spending large amounts of money, even on a tax program.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's the challenge that we're gonna have to, hopefully with a broad coalition, overcome, or deal with legislators. I mean, I think as Angelique mentioned, you know, budgets are value statements, fundamentally. And the values that Michigan Future is putting forward is, first is the notion that we need an economy that as it grows benefits everybody. 6 in 10 Michigan jobs don't pay enough to support a middle-class family of 3. This is a powerful way of helping those families. And secondly, is this notion that if you want to help these families at scale, there is a strong preference on our part, and it turns out in the poll on overall and Michiganders' part, to do it through providing families with income, not programs. So that's the case that we're going to have to make. And hopefully with a broad coalition, we're going to sort of make that case over the next 8 weeks or so as decisions are made on the budget for fiscal year 25.
Are there any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or place them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to those. Last call for questions. All right, folks, thank you for joining us today. We will make a recording of this available to those who attended, and we will get that out to you all shortly.